Here's something else that Jared was talking about this morning. This is one that he said slipped through the cracks. This one is called Gilmore Space. Their goal is, let's reach for the stars, Australia. So here's another company that launches satellites, platforms, share rides. Is this another Bezos?
I think we put Jarrah on the case there.
Jared sent an email to these guys trying to see if they will take that proposal for that water
Yeah.
canopy. And he says it slipped right through the cracks because he didn't even realize that it was there. Gilmore Space Technologies is the leading launch service company in Australia, providing valuable access to space to our global commercial and defense customers. Backed by some of the country's biggest investors, Gilmore Space is tracking to launch Ares orbital launch vehicles and LRSat bus platforms to low Earth orbits from 2025.
So it's quite recent.
Yeah.
There's a report in the UK press, main press, a couple of days ago that Musk is losing an average of 4 satellites every day from his Starlink constellation. Bezos is just trying to start a similar operation himself. Yeah, Musk is losing an average of 4 satellites a day from his Starlink constellation. So he's obviously going to have to launch quite a few more, about one every month just to replenish what's lost.
He's putting about 60 a month up right now.
Yeah. And if 4 a day are falling out of the sky, that's what, over 100 a month.
At $250,000 each.
It's an unsustainable project unless you have extreme government funding to back it. That's the difference. If Bezos wants to get into that, he's on his own nickel unless he gets government funding for his projects.
Perhaps the Russians have worked out how to remove them so they can't be used in Ukraine anymore. Oh, that's a good conspiracy theory, that, isn't it?
He was the first one to put the ass in astronauts. So,
according to Katy Perry.
Katy Perry.
She hasn't come out of that very well, has she, that Katy Perry?
No, she's being sued for $50 million, according to this article. Bezos is trying to reclaim his money that he's losing off of this.
Well, she opened the door before she was meant to. Bezos was supposed to do it.
Yes, well, there's obvious fakery in that scene.
Well, that one scene is completely set up, that's for sure.
Yeah. Wasn't that the same wrench used on the original Titanic or some damn thing? When they launched it, laying around somewhere.
God almighty.
It is quite interesting, though, the comments that we get and the continual projection that they have on us that we don't know what we're talking about because, oh, Orion's going to go around the moon. Well, if GM announced that they had a new car and you could actually back it out of your driveway, and that's as far as you could go, that's what the guy's telling me. Oh, look, they're going to do this. Why do they have to clap every time one takes off? Do people stand in an airport and clap every time a plane lands? But every time they launch something, they have to clap and it's a big freaking deal. It's been going on for years. There should be one launching off the launch pad every hour. There should be daily trips into low Earth orbit for people. And there should be restaurants up there, not just the space station. If it's that easy to do, right? And to do all of this stuff. And yes, if it was that easy to get to the moon, there would be moon bases there and permanent setups.
Yeah, of course there would.
Okay, and there'd be daily flights in and out to bring the supply line there. It would be on a daily basis. There'd be enough emergency vehicles there already set up, charged, ready to go to take whatever number of people that are there and get them off. I mean, can you imagine the International Space Station? There's 7 guys on board and they only got 3 suits. That's just illogical. It's like you and mom get a seatbelt in your car, but the kids don't. Right? They throw them up in the back window like they did in the 60s.
I see there's a lot of attention now on getting back to the moon and why it's so difficult and how much money it's going to cost and how difficult it is to get launches and to get to the moon. I think it must be pretty obvious now that maybe Apollo wasn't as real as everybody claims it was. Because if it was so easy to get to the moon back in the 1960s, why are we taking so long today? We keep hearing, it's all about money. We don't have the politics. We don't have the people supporting it in Congress. So there are all sorts of excuses coming out now. explaining why we can't get back to the moon. Nothing to do with the rockets, nothing to do with the problems in space, nothing to do with vacuum damage to spacecraft, to film. I know we're not using film anymore, but there are certain people who don't understand how films work.
But get this. Now, here's this article here in Science. Now, it says NASA faces cuts to rocket program and lunar space station in Trump's 2026 budget. Now, what they're proposing to do is to cut 6 billion US off the space agency's overall budget for next year. That means goodbye SLS system and goodbye to the lunar space station. Without that lunar space station, according to NASA, they can't send any humans to the moon because they have to stop there first and then take the small capsule down.
Maybe it's just an excuse to say that they can't do it because their budget's been cut, as you say, by 6 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, NASA have had a lot of money over the years. And it's always claimed that the Apollo program cost the equivalent today of $280 billion. Well, that's small change in the scheme of things. When you look at the amount of money that's being spent in other areas, which is now being uncovered, why is NASA being shortchanged? Because they're not able to do anything. I mean, the SLS is 40-year design. It's the space shuttle. That's the engines they're using, is the space shuttle engines. Why haven't they got new engines? So why is NASA using these old engines? Because they had them left over, we're told. So they make use of them. But do they work?
Musk was using Russian engines up until 2019. And
Man,
all he did is make it a copy of those engines and started manufacturing them himself. But there's no new technology in those engines. I mean, whatever they try, the energy's in the fuel. If the rocket engine is working at its full capacity, whatever percentage loss you get off of driving a mechanical device, right, of any kind, through that, just lossage, slippage in airspace and thrust that you get while you're traveling through the atmosphere and into space.
It makes no sense to me why Trump would want these guys to go back to the lunar surface, signed that order in his last term, and he still wants them to go back. But now, recently, in the last couple of days, he says he's cutting it all. 24% of NASA's current 24.8 billion US budget is going to be cut, which means that you could forget about Mars. Canada's going to lose their $1 billion contract to build the Canadarm3, which would be the arm that goes on the Gateway Lunar Station. He's sabotaging everything.
Actually, that'd be good for Canada because we already just spend $2 billion a year playing around, which that money goes to the US anyway on, our association with NASA. So we're not putting that out either, just because they didn't get anything back on a satellite like the Canada arm. That doesn't mean anything. We won't be spending the money either on those projects for NASA. But if you look at NASA, if you look at the report server, and people don't go there, they don't know about it, just go to the report server for NASA and see what the PDF files that are sitting there in the last recent years. It has nothing to do with rocket engines. A lot of it has to do with testing for commercial aircraft and the pass-through engines that they're developing and things like that for commercial aircraft. That's
yeah.
where you see them being associated with. And there's so much of a cut going on there. Boeing is no longer going to be on U.S. soil. I can see it them setting up and hooking up with Rolls-Royce.
What they're thinking is the reason, and this was in a different article that I read yesterday, was because Elon Musk is the one who is going to get the money when this gets axed, because he's put together a whole different proposal that's cheaper for them to get to the moon. But then, as Jara said, if they try doing it the way that Elon Musk is suggesting, by taking a whole thing of water, putting it at the end of the rocket, and then turning it around so that the water's facing the sun, he says it can't work because the radiation waves that are coming off of the sun, they wrap around everything. They curve. So
Yeah.
people are in the front of it are going to still get it. It's not going to matter where you are in that rocket. You're going to have to be inside of a circular room that has an outer layer of water in between, like we showed in the last video. And he said that's the only way it's going to work because you were physically inside of that, right in the middle of it, so that the radiation cannot get at you.
Yeah.
Pointing that at the sun is not going to do anything because the magnetic flux lines are just going to come around, carry all that radiation with it, and you're toast. Forget that. That idea is
You're
gone.
looking at what, 8 or 9 feet of water here?
Forget it. It's far too much. Maybe that's what all those extra rockets are going to be used for. It's not fuel, it's water.
Yeah. You see the Van Allen belts, what they protect the Earth from, what they block is equivalent to 9 feet of lead.
It's a lot. They're very well designed, those Van Allen belts, whoever
Okay.
decided to do it.
That's right. And you're looking at 40,000 kilometers of the Van Allen belts, and it's redirecting it. It's not capturing it. It builds up a little bit, but it redirects it around the Earth.
Like sunlight, that's part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and that goes everywhere.
You want to know how deep that water has to be? It says open volume, 1 meter to 1.5 meters deep. Then it goes water shield tanks, 3 meters deep, truncated octahedral geometry, 7 meters outside diameter, 6.4 meters inside diameter. But the water is going to have to be 3 meters deep all the way around that sphere.
And how much does that weigh?
Oh, it doesn't
3
say here.
So if that's 10 feet across, I'm going to pick the largest section that's showing the water there. If that's 10 feet across, this vehicle is about at least 70 to 80 feet across.
Well, it says right there, the outside diameter right there is 7 meters.
Is that the diameter of the internal structure or the whole area?
Oh, no, that's just the water container.
That's a water container that's 7 meters.
Oh, yeah, that's just the container.
Okay, so this vehicle's over 200 feet across.
Yeah, it makes no sense at all. None
They
at all.
can't lift that.
Unless they launch it empty and take the water up in additional tankers.
They would have to bring this up in pieces and put it together.
Yeah, but this is supposed to go inside of a ship. This is supposed to be for the Mars transport system,
No. No.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time, isn't it?
This is a completely impractical design.
No, but if you scaled it down, you see, that was Jera's point. You take this model here and you scale it down and you build that water container into a fuel tank that's been expelled. You see, you could then fill this thing with water or have it already that way when it launches. So that's still a lot of water. No matter what you look at, you're still going to need that 3 meters of water. That's something you cannot get away from. It's a constant.
So there's 10 launches, 15 launches just to get the water up there. It would take a number of years to put this together, floating around in low Earth orbit to make it functional to do anything. And then once it's all together, then you have to have a big enough rocket.
Maybe that's why they're going to need 30 rockets. Never
Yep.
mind the fuel. It's probably for the water, half of it.
If they're going to accelerate that thing and get away from the Earth's gravity, they're going to need a whole lot more rockets with the amount of mass that this thing is.
And they're going to have to use it on the lunar surface as well if they're going to put people there. Going to have all the water in their lunar lander, which they didn't have the first time. We know that. And if they now decide they're going to have to use water as a protection, that blows Apollo right out of the water, to coin a phrase.
It really does.
Maybe the answer to your question, Robert, why Trump is cutting the NASA budget is because Musk has explained to him where the extra money has been going. And now it's going to go direct to Musk. That makes much more sense.
There's a proposal here, and the proposal that this woman put together, first of all, Bezos, no, it doesn't work, too much trouble. We've had too much trouble with that vehicle and whatever else. Now we have here, so Boeing's out, Boeing Starliner, they're out. So Bezos's Blue Origin is now finished, costs too much, it's inefficient. Then you read the proposal that they made for Musk's SpaceX. And it just looks like cream of the pie, cream of the crop. So guess which proposal they picked? I don't even have to tell you. Elon Musk. So now you're right, Marcus. I'll bet you that's where that money went or is
Yeah,
going.
that's where they're going. Because now that Musk has established his position as being able to identify funds that are not being properly allocated and are being used for various other reasons, maybe Trump has said, okay, that's enough. NASA are not doing their job. If you can do it, here's the money. That makes much more sense. So he's cut the NASA budget, increased Musk's budget, and Musk has probably got a better chance of doing it than NASA has. Because NASA just don't get it in terms of how to fly a rocket into space.
I don't think any of them are capable of what they claim that they're doing. I mean, it's all nice. You just have another trumpeter out there saying, I can do this, I can do that, and everybody believes it. They want to
Yeah.
jump on the bandwagon. They want to see technology progress in a rather fashion that matches other technologies. And space technology hasn't done that. There's no new innovations there. Doesn't matter how you try. The weight penalty of using a liquid fuel is one of the biggest showstoppers of the whole thing. The rocket engines, you can build them as big as you want, except they get to a certain size and they blow up. You can only get so much thrust out of a rocket. And that's why even Musk is, what has he got, 32, 34 rockets underneath the thing now? And they're blowing up. This is where we're at. And like I said, this has been done before. Like even Russia built one with 30 plus odd, right? And it blew up. So, you know, they had better rocket technology at the
Yeah.
time.
That's why NASA were using their rocket engines.
That's why Musk was using them. Tried and true. You try to modify the fuel, you try to do anything with those engines, and they just eat themselves alive. They're at the limit of what they can do. They can't have a more efficient fuel out there. There isn't anything that we've developed that creates a bigger and better thrust on it that is physically safe.
It seems that we know a great deal more about space travel than NASA does. They found
Well,
water on the moon. Oh dear, oh dear. Come on, get real. Doesn't work that way. It's not the way the moon is designed. It's in a vacuum. The sort of thing which causes all manner of problems to photographic film, as we've explained. Very good explanation, that, Robert, replying to Dear Dave and Rusty. Rusty was bored stiff the whole time.
Oh, yeah. Poor dog.
Rusty's the dog, by the way.
But I really had to laugh at this because here this woman is putting this price proposal together. She's axing Blue Origin. She's axing Boeing, which actually is the people who supposedly built these moon machines back in '69. They can't even get one shipped to the ISS without it leaking. What's the deal with that? Can you imagine if that thing would have went to the moon instead? Those people would have been dead. I really enjoy this, how she gave this contract to SpaceX after a very thorough revised proposal. And she says, I made final option A selection and award determinations to SpaceX as documented herein because they have the best evaluation, they have the best methodology. And this is, by the way, a proposal. This is proposal evaluation methodology. And she says they have the best. So guess who got the contracts?
Yeah.
Musk.
Because he's got the
well,
best people working for him.
actually, he doesn't have the best people working for him anymore. His best rocket guy went off on his own. I was watching Musk live when they were taking down one of the towers, one of those towers that catch the first stage. So I'm sitting watching it, and I said to a friend of mine, I said, tell me, do you see any Tesla trucks on site on the construction crew? No, they're all GMCs, big Fords, 3500 series machines running around when they're dismantling this and hauling the stuff out. I said, where are these Tesla trucks? Why aren't they on site? Why isn't anybody working for them driving a Tesla anything? The construction companies coming in there, you think he would be offering them incentives to advertise his product. When he advertises his new moon base that he's going to be so-called setting up, he has little Tesla trucks in those. We saw those.
Yeah, perhaps they haven't built the charging structures yet.
When I went disassembly of Launchpad, it just went rapid disassembly of other things.
Okay, so there's the trucks. Yeah, you don't see one single Tesla there, do you? It's at 9:26 in. That's where the cranes are taking it down. They're just getting the
Yeah.
cranes ready there. Yeah.
I was watching that, and then you get in about 6 minutes in there, and there's all the vehicles driving around, right?
Yeah, there they are.
I'm at 7:45 right now, and there's a shot on the road and all the vehicles. There's no Teslas anywhere. That's what I was amazed at. Yeah,
Improvements along Highway 4, not one Tesla vehicle.
every shot you see that's on the ground, these guys are showing it. But when I was watching it, they had it down just right at the main section at the bottom was still standing there, and just four of the pillars up on the first section above that they were pulling down, and then all the vehicles coming in and out to pick that stuff up off the cranes. Are picking it up off the ground and loading it onto trucks and trailers and stuff. I'm just looking at all the big commercial trucks.
I didn't know that they had two of these launch towers that caught the rockets.
That's what it says in the notes there. Starbase second pad is continuing to progress towards readiness while this one's being pulled down.
They're tearing down Pad A and they're building Pad B.
He's also moving to a new location as well. I would think it was somewhat damaged. Don't forget, you're still using rocket and jet fuel and everything else when it's landing there, right?
This is what makes no sense is that when you take a look at, go back to the Apollo era, and you're looking at these Saturn 1A engines that were on the rockets, they had rings just like this that the rocket basically sat on so that the exhaust went through the center. And these guys had water suppression. So what does Musk do? Makes a more powerful rocket, and then he makes the same thing but with no water suppression. That doesn't make sense when he saw the damage from the other engines.
One thing that's really, really doesn't make any sense is that Texas has the ninth largest economy in the world, and it's broke. That
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense. If you are that capable of taking stuff that you don't have to manufacture, it just comes out of the ground. You can
it's
sell it as is,
it's free
right?
when it comes out of the ground.
All you have to do is ship it somewhere and sell it,
Yeah,
right? It's free. I had an old gentleman that came into my restaurant, and he basically was running a surface mine. So he's quarrying slate and other stones and stuff like that and marble products. And I said, "How come you could charge this much for that stone?" And he said, "Well, I had to wait 600,000 years for it to mature to that." And he was just kidding around, right? I mean, he basically bought the land and stuff. And I said, "Well, as opposed to your stone," I said, "if you don't sell it this week," I said, "it's still there. Nothing's going to happen to it." I said, "But if you walk into my kitchen, what's in my coolers has to keep coming through, has to be rotated. You can't make a mistake. You have to keep it clean. You have to do that, right? Any of
right.
your in-house products on a daily basis all have to go. And if they don't go, it's a direct loss." And he kind of looked at me, and I said, "I have a steak. It's in my refrigerator, and I better sell it." I said, "You got a stone there. It's already been laying there for 600,000 years. If you don't sell it until next year, it's just as good." That's the difference in businesses. You're talking about stuff like that.
Well, they haven't worked out how to resolve the heat shield problem. You know, the one that they have a real problem with holes in the heat shields. They can't work out what to do. Musk is using something quite different, isn't he? Stainless steel, but he hasn't tested it yet. They haven't come back from low Earth orbit even.
Well, I know if they really want to make a proper spacesuit to deal with all of that and everything else, all they have to do is just go to Hawaii and walk across the lava flows in their new spacesuit to see if it can hold back the heat. And you can put the heat shields on the boots. You can walk right across that lava.
Now, yeah, but these guys are going to say that's conduction now and that's convection. They're going to start saying that there is no heat on the moon like it is on Earth because there's no atmosphere. Therefore, your feet are not going to burn. I don't know about that, but the surface of the moon, as long as the sun's striking it like we see in the Apollo images, their feet are going to get hot.
That's why they had protection to wear on their boots. They couldn't wear the normal spacesuit boots. They had to have overshoes to protect them made of silicon. You
Well,
know, the stuff that's supposed to reflect the lights that are shown in all the photographs.
The Hasselblad cameras are all painted silver because they're supposed to reflect the sunlight, which is rubbish.
It might, rather than being black, it might heat up a little bit slower. But when you're testing a piece of material or a piece of machinery, you don't test it just to what it needs to be able to do. Like a simple tank, right? Even a propane tank. They test the burst rate on that at least 3 times what the maximum would be on what could happen with the propane in there. It's rated at least 3 times above that. They're looking for a safety factor in anything, unlike the Titan. They didn't bother with the testing. Those other submarines, they're 5 and 6 times more than the pressure that they're going down to. They're tested to much higher levels than that for their safety rating. So how come none of any of NASA's equipment have to meet that rating? Space suits, I mean, 70,000 feet. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, here's another interesting little tidbit. I have two articles here. One of the articles has the measurements in kilograms, meters. The other one is all in feet, inches, and normal weights. Now,
Yeah.
this is two PDFs from NASA. And I'm just looking at this, I'm thinking, my God, man. So after about 40 years, they're using metric now. Then I looked at this other article that's from 2014, and now they're back to using feet and inches. So what's going on here?
Yeah, but some of the original documents are mixed like that as well. And I found that very curious. And is it the fact that you had von Braun in there and he'd be using metric and his rocket engineers would be using a metric system because that's what they're used to? And the other part of the document is going to be an imperial standard or whatever you want to call it. It's not really imperial standard, it's just feet and inches.
Yeah, imperial measurements. They're called feet and inches.
I forget what year Canada, it was either 69 or 70 in that range when we so called had to convert to the metric system.
The same as we did in the UK.
Yeah.
1971, that was.
Yeah.
We're supposed to go to the metric system, and everybody up in arms. They say, no, no, we want to weigh things in pounds and ounces, and we're going to continue to do it. And they made it illegal to use pounds and ounces to weigh vegetables. People got sent to prison for that until they changed the law because it was so obviously wrong. You could use both measurements. And education now is using metric. So most kids don't understand feet and inches, which is a logical system when you think about it.
It has its benefits.
Oh, yeah, it has its benefits.
Well, you can use the human body to measure that. Basically, with the farmers, they just took a 16-foot chain and they measured it off a field just with 2 posts and a 16-foot chain. So it's so many rods. Well, each rod is 16 feet, but it also works out and it will make a 10-acre field. 1,132 feet by 3,300 feet or something like that is 100 acres or something like that.
Still, it's interesting. Well, I wonder if SpaceX is using that method. What I don't quite understand about SpaceX, which gets me, is that they're relocating Pad A because there's, too much environmental impact closer to the ocean. And yet this Pad B is not that much further away. So what is the story with that? So they moved this, 100 feet away? You think that's going to help?
They're already pointing it over top of the water to be away from any civilization or damage anybody else's building. They can damage the ocean all they want. But when those things go up a half a mile and blow up anyway, it scatters all their shit everywhere. It doesn't matter whether it's 50 or 100 feet.
Yeah, it's a little more than that. Actually, now that you look at it,
Is it farther away from their fuel tanks?
it's closer to some of the fuel tanks, but further than the others. Kind of doesn't make sense.
A lot of it doesn't make sense.
They've moved this closer to the highway. Now, that doesn't really make sense, does it? Because if anything happens, there's going to be catastrophe. Okay, there's not going to be vehicles moving up and down Highway 4, but still, you're going to have to repair that road from all the rubbish that falls down on it.
Let's just say hi to all our detractors. If you're so clever, why aren't you rich?
Why aren't they working for NASA?
Ah,
Because they have
good
all the
point.
answers, right? These guys got all the answers. They just go get a job done.
Probably got a good pension too, haven't they? That's where the money's going. The unfunded pension funds. Never mind. Leave that for another day. Day.